Okay, welcome everybody. Thank you very much. I feel honored that you're attending my presentation today. So I'm going to speak to you about HyFlex. You may or may not have heard about HyFlex, and then looking how we would apply that to language learning in particular. I'd like to start off with a statistic. And this statistic says that approximately 15% of the global population, or 1 billion people, have a disability. And the coronavirus crisis has actually exposed several failings in the treatment of higher education students with disabilities, while at the same time it has presented several unexpected opportunities. In an interview with the BBC, Disability Rights stated that its student helpline had received hundreds of calls from people across the UK who said things like slides and reading lists and handouts were not always made available in advance of teaching sessions. And while some universities have supported their students with disabilities well in the transition to online learning, there have been reports of things like muffled voices on online lectures that has been a particular issue for deaf students, and additional challenges for students with autism spectrum disorder, given the high degree of multitasking involved. Now, the reason I've been talking about students with disabilities is much of the time the same difficulties faced online and also the same technologies that we utilized are used by groups of people that are language learners as well. But while the coronavirus has exposed many challenges in the support of students, it's actually also revealed some potential opportunities to improve experiences. There is hope that opportunities for students increase as a result of improved online learning technologies and capabilities. Companies like Zoom, among other video conferencing providers, have invested in creating technology that automatically provides things like closed captioning. Now, while this may not always be 100% accurate, it goes some way as an emerging technology to helping language learners interact online. There are also automatic transcriptions that can be generated and be provided for students. With some quick scanning and editing on behalf of the instructor, a transcript of a lesson can be quickly made available as a resource alongside a video. Okay, let's keep technology like that at the back of our minds and add something else to the mix. A recent study of 2,000 undergraduate students found that there is no doubt that there was widespread enthusiasm for a return to in-person classes. Now, this may not surprise some of you. But despite this, however, most students actually wanted to keep some of the elements of remote learning. So let's have a look at this in a bit more detail. 79% of students indicated that they would like lectures made available online so that they could go back and review the material. Nearly half wanted the option to toggle between in-person and online attendance. And while over 1 in 3 students wanted the ability to communicate privately with an instructor, like a chat, during a lecture or a lesson. Now, these are students in higher education with English as a first language, but I think we can see how this could also be important to second language learners. And what I've come to realize is that offering choice and accessibility to information is a conversation worth having. The trick is to attempt to have a language course designed with alternative but equally effective modes of participation that can lead to the same learning outcomes in areas of language learning, of course, that we can fit into it. So where it's applicable and where it's also possible to do that. We want whatever learning route a student chooses to provide a meaningful learning experience. Remote learning not only has the potential to offer equitable access and experiences to students, but can also reduce barriers to enabling more students to achieve their language goals. Let's think about students who have to work or take care of family, for example. These people can benefit from options in asynchronous pathways, which can enable them to maintain progress toward their language goals. So, let's see what we can learn from something called HyFlex. So HyFlex is something that you may or may not have heard of before. HyFlex was born out of faculty across many universities in the United States, actually, where my colleague is from today. Redesigned a hybrid flexible model. The HyFlex model's creators developed it for teaching under normal circumstances based on recognizing the natural diversity in students and their daily circumstances. So this had nothing to do because of the pandemic. It had nothing to do with the COVID pandemic. It combines simultaneous face-to-face or in-person sessions with simultaneous online components and gives students the flexibility to choose their preferred learning mode, in addition to providing asynchronous learning as well at the same time. Now, that sounds like a lot of balls to juggle, I'm sure. I want to stress at this point that this wasn't created originally for language learning scenarios, and a traditional HyFlex course would run the same course in 3 parallel modes. So just wanted to go over these modes again. Synchronous, in person, so face-to-face, live. Synchronous online, and asynchronous online. And this is where instructors would provide class recordings for later consumption. The type of HyFlex model that most of us would implement during the COVID-19 pandemic would likely differ from this traditional HyFlex model, and even more so if we were to consider language learners. So let's have a look a little bit into traditional HyFlex. First, students choose which delivery modality to follow among 3 modalities in the model that I have mentioned. Their choices can range from one class period or one learning activity to another. Hence, this is what we would call the flexible part of the hybrid flexible model. Secondly, whatever the learning mode that the students choose, they can all fully participate in the course without compromising the learning outcomes. Therefore, in this model, remote students would fully participate and equally benefit from learning tools such as discussions, communicative activities, assignments, and in the same manner as face-to-face students would accomplish with the same learning outcomes. In a traditional HyFlex model, students drive the learning mode for each class meeting and the learning activity. So students receive their education in an optimal way for their individual circumstances and learning. If a student feels like a certain topic requires them to engage, or it could be a speaking lesson, for example, in person with the instructor, they have the freedom to make that choice. And it might not just be with the instructor, it might be with other students as well. If they don't want to come to campus on a certain day, or they can't come to campus on a certain day, they can participate remotely that day. So again, I'd like to stress that this is for traditional HyFlex. If they wanted to come to campus every day for every class period and just be a regular student in person, they could also do that as well. So they have that choice between the 3 different modes. So what does a HyFlex classroom actually look like? So that might be something that we might want to look at. What does it actually look like? So I've come up with a visualization for you. I didn't actually come up with it, but I've managed to find a visualization for you. So this is what a HyFlex classroom would look like. And as you can see, we've got quite flexible seating there. And obviously in COVID pandemic times, they would be socially distanced. We've got some cameras dotted around the room, and you can see some screens, some different screens at the front there that are interactive. And here's another. Okay, and this is a different classroom here. And you'll notice at the front of the room in this one, there isn't an interactive screen. Okay, there's just a regular whiteboard. But you'll notice on the back wall that there is something else. Okay, now what you need is an intuitive video conferencing platform. Now, of course, to conduct a HyFlex course, you would need reliable video conferencing software, and your hardware products would all have to be able to connect and perform flawlessly with all of these programs as well. So it'd be really important that you had everything of a really good quality in order to do that, including the infrastructure and actually making sure that the bandwidth, for example, on your internet was of a high speed, something that I don't regularly experience. It's also important to look at a conferencing platform that has some integrations with the learning management software that you might be using. So when comparing platforms, you should also look for a platform that will allow instructors to share a screen, to be able to annotate, to record, and whatever else an instructor may need to do during a HyFlex course. Not only an instructor, but also giving access to those other students who are participating either online or in the classroom. So for those who are participating online, we want to make sure that they're engaged. It's a lot easier to engage people that are in the class, but actually the people that are online, it obviously is quite a lot more difficult. So, and then you've got those other students that might want to watch the lecture a little bit later on. We'll talk about those a little bit later on. So software like Zoom or Microsoft Teams or WebEx or these types of platforms that actually use video conferencing in order to do that, and have been quite successful at doing that. And I would look for a company that really invests its time in that when you're looking for these. So any one of those that I've just mentioned. You also need a scalable audio solution. So it's crucial to have a solution that's easy for instructors to learn and to use, that won't disrupt the flow of the class. So you not only need audio that's reliable, but you need audio that's scalable to fit in the rooms of all the shapes and sizes. Now let me talk about the audio here in this room, for example. Excuse me. You'll notice here that there are some microphones dotted around the room. I don't know if you can see my mouse hovering over a couple of these here. So you can see that these over here are actually, in the middle here, are actually microphones. And what you can actually see here is that these microphones are there to be able to exclude sound from the rest of the room. And so if a student at the back of the room, excuse me, if a student at the back of the room needs to access, needs to ask a question or needs to be heard by the people at home, then they might be asking a question that somebody at home wants to ask, or somebody in a remote situation wants to ask as well. They can actually hear them very, very clearly because the microphones are just there. And some of these actually work automated. And what they'll do is they'll cancel the sound out for the rest of the room and allow the student to talk, or it can be controlled from the podium at the front. So select a particular microphone in order to be able to do that, or a group of microphones. You can see that there are about 4 microphones on each one of those little points there. There's also a microphone at the front here as well. And this flexible audio solution, scalable audio solution, can be fitted in different sized rooms as well. So obviously in a smaller room, you wouldn't need so many, but in a larger room, you would probably need more. So you can see how this might be able to work. So making sure that it's scalable is really, really important, and that also comes into the infrastructure. You also need reliable conferencing camera. So when choosing a camera for HyFlex in the classroom, it's important to identify the requirements needs it meets. So for example, if you need to capture a certain field of view, or you need to set up some presets or some zoom capabilities while somebody is talking, you want to be able to do that. And you might want to, because panning around the room is going to help engage your students as well. So you want this natural feeling as well. Now, you'll notice that here in this room, some rooms actually use dual cameras with a larger field of view and zoom to capture classrooms from the back, to show the front of the class, and another maybe to show the view of the students, because you want to make sure that the students at home are actually immersed in the class as well, okay? Because a lot of what we're missing online is that social interaction. And so we want to try and simulate that as much as possible. Now, I'm not trying to say that it will ever replace this interaction, unless the technology gets very, very smart. And actually, if we get time, I'm going to show you some technology which has some promising features a little bit later on. But what I want to say is that we want to try and simulate it as much as possible, as close as we can with the technology that we have. So here is an example of a tracking camera that has been hooked up with Zoom. And hopefully you'll be able to see this video moving around. And so what you can see here is that this is all happening automatically. And I'm just going to go back and show that again because it's quite a quick video. Whoops. And what you'll see is that it's actually panning around the instructor as she's explaining something on the board there. It's zooming in, taking different angles. And you want this level of interest when you do this online, because like I said, you want to try and make sure that you're doing this as much as possible to kind of mimic what's going on in the classroom. That visual interest is really, really important. So let me just move on to the next slide. Now, the other thing, and perhaps this is optional, is to add some interactivity into the classroom as well. Interactive boards are useful for increasing the engagement of those who are in class and for online students. And students who are participating online can see how the instructor or how other students break down problems or discuss material on the board as well. So if you have something that you can interact with, but not only you can interact with, but other people can interact with, regardless of where they are. So let's imagine that you've got students here. They all have devices in front of them. They could be mobile phones, they could be laptops, they could be tablet devices. It really doesn't make any difference. Most of them will come to a lesson with some kind of device. And if you can enable access to a collaborative board, that's also going to be very, very helpful when you do that, including the students at the back there who are on the screen, who are at home. They can also interact with that board, or at least see the board very clearly, not just from a camera's perspective, but if they could access it somewhere else, that would be good. So I'm going to show you an example of something called Jamboard by Google, which is just that. So this is a board that you'll be able to see, you can interact with. I mean, here, it's going to turn into the digital version here at the moment. And what you can see is, as people are interacting with it, you have these multiple access points. So these could be two teams working in two very remote areas. They're just happening to work together. They could be two groups of people. You can see that one person is joining in the call from a car, and they're inputting as well, so they can interact with that board as well. So it's not just the fact that they can join a call, but that they can interact with that board. And that adapts for the different types of, let's say, the different types of interaction that you want to do that. It would divide the devices. You interact with devices in different ways. And so this would be exactly the same thing. You can see that somebody's interacting on a board. Another person might be interacting on a mobile device. And if you are interacting, it has all the natural things that you would interact with on a board, including a board rubber and all the rest of it. But it actually allows you to a lot more movement on there as well. So this is just an example from Jamboard. Now, the Jamboard software is actually free. It's just that board that you can see that would actually cost anything. But you can actually set up Jamboards without having that device. That device just makes it a little bit easier when you're in class. But you could theoretically do this through the website as well, and you could use any board like a smart board. So you can see that. Now, this is another app that I wanted to talk to you about. This is the Classroom app for teachers, and it's available for supported iPad devices and Mac computers. And that's to hold classes in a schoolroom, either remotely or through a combination of nearby and remote hybrid classes. Now, when teaching a class, with this app, you can launch a specific app or a website or a textbook page, and you can send documents and receive them to your students and share student work as well on a TV monitor or through something called an Apple TV. And finally, you can see apps which students are working on actually from your device. And at the end of the day, you can get a summary. So you can actually see what people have been working on and how they've been working on. This works for about students of no bigger than 60 students in a class, and there are 3 types of environment that you can create for your class with this. There's nearby, so all your students can be in the same room, as long as you're all connected to the Wi-Fi network. There's remote, where all students are remote and connected to the Wi-Fi network, including the instructor as well. The instructor's remote as well. And then there's hybrid, where some of your students are in the same room as you, and others are connected to the school's Wi-Fi network, and some are working remote. And there would only be one active class type supported on the device at any one time. But the fact that you can actually engage with the students, actually see what they're doing, and whether they're on the right track, guide the students. You can actually lock different devices as well once they're all connected. And if you want them to pay attention to you, and you can direct the attention as well. So you can pretty much control what's going on the device in there, and you can see what people are doing. A bit Big Brother-ish, but it would help somebody manage the class very, very well. Now, there are different challenges with HyFlex. So traditional HyFlex courses can be deceptively difficult to do well, and the technology requires the learning must align, and the technology needs to work consistently for everybody, which requires testing and possibly new installations or upgrade. Instructors may need training, so some students working remotely, others face-to-face, but at a distance, and still others via recording later on. They also need training in managing the social and communication logistics, and considerable immediate support when confronting things like technical glitches or mishaps. And not to mention pedagogy. Teaching effectively in a web conference is notoriously difficult, given its superficial similarity to the live classroom. We may assume that the dynamics are the same, but they're not actually. And just imagine, in a HyFlex mode, people may find themselves managing activities for two audiences at once, plus students who will be viewing the class on a recording. So how can we ensure that learning for this last group, how can we do that and hold the members accountable as well? And it might not be the best fit. It's not the best fit for all classes. So asynchronous speaking classes might be a bit difficult to do. But as the technology advances, it may offer opportunities like other avenues, things like speech analysis and feedback, for example, something that could be run through or something like artificial intelligence. Zoom fatigue, you probably all heard of this, and you might have already experienced it. Zoom fatigue has been commonly referred to as something that we all have probably been through. And this can also add to problematic experiences when compounded by inadequate technology or bandwidth, people echoing audio, unstable video audio, the failure of the video conference camera to fully capture the demonstrations, or the instructor's body language, the inability to hear the contributions of live students. And we've mentioned a couple of solutions there that would help with that. And the chat box scrolling too quickly. You probably read that, try to read the chat box as people are writing in, especially if you've got an active class there. For live classroom students, the problem would be that it might be too much noise in small group numbers in the room if everybody's trying to communicate online as well. And difficulty understanding classmates through masks, microphone interference, overloaded classroom Wi-Fi, among other things. And the other thing is community. The problem of community probably didn't materialize in the spring of 2020 with the students in the same class who already knew each other from face-to-face experiences. But after that semester, however, many students started out as strangers and actually ended up as strangers. So this sense of community doesn't grow automatically. It's something that an instructor needs to actually help with. And we all know that this is integral to learning. So what about like a soft adoption to this? So is this something that we can implement to a degree now? And I would say yes. And with the technology that's currently available to us, I also think that as time goes on, that the interaction technologies will improve. So one thing we could do is have all students log into a VC platform, video conferencing platform, both in-person sessions and remotely. And students that are in class can turn down their sound or use their headphones and actively ask questions posed to students at home in particular. You might want to pre-assign and utilize breakout rooms. This enables more integrative learning experiences. You can group students in different manners and have one person in each group in the class joining the people that are at home. This allows the instructor to walk around the room and keep a closer eye and monitor each group in real time. And this approach also creates a semblance, really, of the familiarity of that in-class experience as instructors walk around the classroom in normal times and interact with groups. So the other thing is, if they walk up to one student in the class, they get to see everyone else that's in the group on the person's screen as well. So yeah, that would be an option. Another thing would be to assign the chat, maybe nominate 1 or 2 people in the class to keep atop of the chat, to kind of break that problem of trying to focus on the chat. The chat often gives a voice to the otherwise voiceless. You've probably all got those quiet students in class. Chat might be an opportunity for them to express themselves, and chats can be downloaded as well and monitored as well. So you could have a look at those a little bit later on and have a look at who's contributing and how they're contributing, especially in terms of monitoring language learning and contribution. Making the asynchronous interactive, and this is good for students who are joining the session asynchronously, or indeed if a student is reviewing content. So recorded lessons, you can download those, and you can use very quick fire tools today. The tools like Nearpod or PlayPosit or Camtasia. This can add another dimension to asynchronous learning. You can make these very interactive and very quickly as well with these types of tools. Video responses. So I saw this video actually. I'm going to show you this right now, if you can see that. And basically this actually came from somebody using this in marketing, and it's a bit like a survey, but it is used with a video instead. So what you do is you respond with the video, and it puts closed captioning for you. You share a link, you can put it on a website, and actually people can respond to different questions and actually have that very intimate face-to-face conversation that they need to sometimes, and perhaps do that asynchronously as well. So that's also another option for you. This is from something called Video Ask by Typeform. So this is for the corporate world at the moment, but I think it could easily be adapted to use in language learning situations. Another thing is to record breakouts. So adding to that and recording breakouts is really, really important. People can actually take part in those recorded sessions as well. And this incentivizes students to pay attention in class as well. So student groups can benefit from being able to review the past and add to those conversations as well. And then the last point is really to encourage collaborations, is to use something like Jamboard or Smartboard integration as well. So asynchronous students can add their thoughts afterwards to these boards as well. Now, I wanted to finish off just with a very quick video. I don't think we're going to be able to show all of it, but I want to show this. This is something from Google, again. It's called Project Starline, and I wanted to show you this because what this does, it actually allows people to see each other in 3D space. It's actually a bit of a window. Let me see if I can zoom it in a little bit. So you can see that somebody is sitting down here and interacting in 2 different cities. But if you look, what you'll be able to see is it's a very human interaction. It looks like somebody is actually looking through a window at somebody else. This is 3D, so that we actually can have that very human interaction. So this, to me, looks very futuristic, and that the technology involved in here must be phenomenal, because it actually looks like somebody's talking to you. And then you can see that there's 3D imaging involved as well, and it tracks how you're looking at that person. And I'm pretty sure you need a pretty quick Wi-Fi connection to be able to do that. So I just wanted to finish off with that. So thank you very much for this opportunity to present to you. I hope you found it interesting. And with that, I'd like to hand back to Christina.